Boom, we are back. That's right. Pod 144, the world's most bullish podcast, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit, brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Nevlock, aka the Excellence of Execution, and we are back to normal service. Mrs. No Show, aka Mrs. No Show. Not here. What's going on, boys?
Well, no updates about ESG. But maybe we'll hear about the trifle she was eating this week.
Maybe.
Very interesting ingredients in the trifle, but we'll have to ask them about it next week.
I want no part of that trifle.
Hashtag trifle.
Oh God, he's gone back on topic. I don't think much has gone on in the Bitcoin world.
I don't know.
I mean, it's ticking along. I think if some of these things had happened, say 6 months, a year ago, we would have got really excited. But we're hitting like, it almost feels like the doldrums, like 50k, and it's just you kind of go, oh, what's the next big thing? You're waiting for, what's the next big thing? So we're waiting for what's the big surge going to be after the halving.
Yeah,
but I think it may just be all these little building blocks going on. And we got a few of the stories this week where we talk about, well, what's going to cause Bitcoin to go up to the next level.
Yeah, well, I think like price-wise, yeah, we are slightly in the doldrums. That's why even Bitcoin Twitter, I'm starting to see comments saying, "Oh, Bitcoin Twitter was better back in the day," and this comes round every couple of years when price is just stagnant, when we haven't got something to be either bullish or bearish about. We start just going, "Oh, it's boring on Bitcoin Twitter now," because people aren't excited or they're not scared, But bizarrely, there's so much happening probably around Bitcoin, and it's largely like in the US at the moment. There's almost a competition seemingly between both sides on the Democrats and the Conservatives.
Republicans.
Yeah, the Republicans. Yeah, around who can almost tie themselves and be more friendly to Bitcoin, which is one hell of a U-turn, because on every single pod, pretty much, other than the last probably 2 or 3 that we've had pro-Trump and Bitcoin kind of like tied together, bar those 3, every time the US government and Bitcoin's been brought up, it has been wholly negative, like completely the other end of the spectrum. They're totally down there. We're right-wing bigots, racists, boiling the oceans, all the classic FUD stories. And it's just completely flipped to, oh no, we accept donations in Bitcoin. We're going to be supportive of Bitcoin. We want America to be the center of mining Bitcoin. And it's just all is this just classic pre-election propaganda and hype? But the thing is, like, they can't walk this back later, right? If both sides pitch themselves positively with Bitcoin, when they get in, it's much harder to flip on it later.
But it's looking at the odds. It's like, if you think about it, if you're a Bitcoiner, I'm an anti-Bitcoin, you're obviously going to vote against them. Whereas if you're a bit against Bitcoin, if you don't really understand it, you just don't care, do you? You're like, oh, it's going to pop, it's going to whatever. So if they accept it, you're like, well, they're taking my money. So I think it's a win-win situation, and it doesn't really matter. But if, against Bitcoin, they're losing potentially 5-10 million voters by just distancing themselves from crypto. So I just think it's
voters and funds, by the way, as well.
Yeah, it'll be 10 million voters, and then times by whatever the average donation is. So say it's $50 per person, 50 million, which is still substantial. It'll pay for some of Joe's ice creams.
But it is bizarre though. If we rewind just a couple of years, but never mind, rewind like 6 years, to think that Bitcoin is one of the topics of the US election from a positive standpoint, it would be nuts. And I imagine if you were to ask people, oh yeah, that's the case, like what's the price of Bitcoin? What would you guess? They'd probably go, well, it's hundreds of thousands, right? It's gone nuts.
Well, I don't want to ever believe that Satoshi, just by chance, launched Bitcoin in the presidential election year.
Oh,
I do think it was on purpose.
well, he
And
was American, wasn't he? Or at least lived in America because he got his IP doxed to somewhere in San Fran.
well, we're going down a different rabbit hole there
Oh no,
because
I listened to it this morning. Like I thought I better listen to the whole episode. But yeah, I just picked up that and kind of thought he's American, or at least experienced the American presidential campaigns.
potentially yes, but apparently, like if you look back, a lot of the emails used UK or English written words. So, for example, color with U in there instead of
you mean he could actually speak and write properly?
correct. Correct. So there was that thought that it was a bit confusing, more to say, in terms of things
the
as
fact
well.
is, the British elections are pretty much nothing. Let's be honest. You know, it doesn't mean anything.
Correct.
Anything which America does, Britain follows. Whether it's then or whether it's in a few years' time, it always follows. So it's the centre of pretty much the world. What happens in the American elections for what's going to cascade down onto the rest of the world.
So
but where I was going with it is equally, you know, when it comes to election time, there's always the printing of money as well. And as we know, you know, it's going to go parabolic because they need to print more, obviously, to keep up with inflation. And so it's obviously just very timely as well, isn't it? And then the acceptance of donations also.
Do they usually have a war with them the first year?
Pass.
Because you know they've had a lot of awesome wars after they've been elected, and that's when we get the opportunities of print. But I think they found a real bottomless pit when they went into viruses. You know, there's been rumours about the bird flu emerging, so we can have lockdowns and whatever else on that, so they can print shitloads more money and make you even poorer. But it'll be for your health.
Just a quick, super quick point on the UK election. It was actually, it's almost like an inflation weekly. I heard it on the radio. So there was a Labour and a Conservative MP, and I only caught, it was like a little 2-minute thing. I was flicking through the channels and they just started talking, and someone mentioned inflation. So I went and listened to the end of this conversation before I flicked past it. But basically the Conservative was having a go at Labour for having a load of big plans for how it's going to revolutionise the country, and their way of paying for it, he said, was either completely flawed, and it all involved increasing taxes, and that's not fair. The Conservatives aren't going to raise taxes, yet they're still going to improve all these projects. So I'm sat there going, you lying little fucker, you don't have to increase taxes to pay for stuff. You can just inflate it. You can just print it out of thin air. The Labour guy only went and said it. He went, yeah, we're being honest with how we're going to deliver our projects, and put a penny on national insurance or something. We're going to raise billions that way. You're going to inflate the entire monetary supply, and that is a hidden tax on the population. I went, you just said it out loud. Said it out loud. What's going to happen? Nothing. Obviously, he's got a nice little platitude that just
sounds like he's going to have a heart attack in the next couple of days.
Well, no, I think they both admit it when they're against each other occasionally. Honestly, these are lower down people. They're not the leaders. They were just random MPs that were doing a radio debate on some random channel that I was flicking through. But you just go, obviously, most of the people are listening to this, they wouldn't have had that penny drop moment then.
Never.
It's just because all they look at is, what are the policies and what does it mean for me? And do I get some free stuff out of this? And they don't weigh up the, oh yeah, look, you're going to get a £500 discount on this one thing. But how are they going to do that thing? They're probably going to inflate the monetary supply or increase the taxation somewhere. And over the course of the next 10 years, you're going to be over thousands of pounds down during that year, as opposed to, that's not going to balance out the £500 of kickback they gave you here. And none of that is ever talked about. And it's just,
yeah, it's like when these cuts.
I never follow it. It's just...
it's like when cuts are mentioned. So if you're going to make a cut on tax, which you're already in a deficit at this moment in time anyway, I mean, that we know that the US is certainly in a deficit. Not too sure about, well, I do know that the U.
Is that me? I know. So never look.
Go on to have a look.
Okay.
Come back.
I was going to say, it's kind of like pause. I don't know.
There
So, should
Take this
we?
opportunity to go to story one.
But we've kind of kicked into Biden and the US election. Should we continue along that vein?
Go on then.
Yeah. So this is, I think, in response to Trump. This is one about Biden to attend a Bitcoin roundtable, or rather crypto roundtable, with key congressional officials in DC. So we had the one about Trump accepting donations and also speaking to miners, whereas this is because Biden's administration's been very anti-crypto, so it's quite a surprise. And I'll just take some quotes from it. So Koana's office described Bitcoin meeting as the most significant meeting between policymakers and innovation leaders in blockchain to date. So I think it's quite generalist. It isn't Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin and shitcoin. The roundtable is expected to feature officials from the Biden administration, House and Senate, alongside American businessman Mark Cuban. We know how Mr. Orlin loves Mark Cuban. Has a picture of Mark Cuban in his shower.
Nah, what a wanker.
Banana man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is one of the many different building blocks. As the parties seem to be fighting over who's most friendly to cryptocurrency now. So this is like one of the many things which kind of puts it a level up. And I suppose something which relates to a later point is like with these kind of like governments, they are very short term. So looking, how can we get elected? How can we get in? How can we raise more money? How can we siphon more money? They're not looking at 20 years down the line. So they're not thinking, oh yeah, Bitcoin will displace the dollar. They're just looking and going, how do we get more voters? How do we get in ahead of Trump? So I think, but they're opening up a door is the way which I see it. They don't want to open this door. So they know what it leads to, but Bitcoin isn't going to displace the dollar within 4 years. So they're not really asked, are they?
No, it does reek of just, yeah, like you said before, trying to stop votes leaving one side and joining another, because it's clearly that the left was very strong, very extremely anti all this. So Trump clearly saw this as a potential win and just went, oh yeah, I'm going to be Mr. Advocate for this. So they're trying to water it down. It's not black and white, is it? Now the left side is slightly grey, whereas Trump is still very black on his issue. He's like pro Bitcoin, definitely.
Yeah.
And now, the Democrats were very white against, completely hate it. But now they just grade it up now. So there'd be a load of voters that if they were single issue voters, now are suddenly going, oh, actually, both sides actually kind of support my interests. But yeah, this just stinks of a vote winner because it's got further down. The things that have been said literally just this time last year. Crypto they're just wealthy tax evaders. Bitcoin and proof of work. Been highly critical of that. They've been promoting their CBDC. They wanted a 30% tax on electricity over and above existing taxes if it is used for Bitcoin mining. That is their strategy. Their strategy is to stifle and kill Bitcoin in America. Whatever little roundtable they're having to try and foster innovation, I call bullshit on it largely. But still, it's still interesting, the fact that they say it's been leaked, but there's no stuff like this. This essentially isn't a PR piece, but it is. It's a PR piece leaked to certain areas of the media going, because they know a whole load of detail, right? They know who's leading it, US Congressman Ro Khanna. How do they know that? There's clearly, they've leaked enough information for the media to run with it. So they don't have to publicly come out and say, we are pro Bitcoin. They've just leaked it out the side. So a load of articles get written that suggest they are pro Bitcoin. But if they ever got asked about it, I'm assuming they can just claim, we never said that. That meeting that you're talking about didn't even officially happen. They can just deny it even happened, right? They never said it happened.
Whereas Trump has come out in kind of support, hasn't he? So he's nailed. That's actually a really good point, but nothing's actually been confirmed from the Democrats. So it's just get the votes. Don't try and not say anything unless we really have to.
Well, we know that they don't follow through on things anyway. So once they get into power, so it's just the Ponzi scheme at the beginning.
Yeah, true.
Right, should we get into the first story?
Actually, seeing as we're on presidents, so we do a president that we actually like a bit more than Sleepy Joe Ice Cream Biden. And go into Nayib Bukele.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
These yeah, we've got two stories on him tonight, all kind of linked together. But the headlines is that he's turned El Salvador from the most dangerous country in the West to the safest in North America. And he's also opening up a Bitcoin bank. He's announced that within 2 weeks of his newest term. So, yeah, what do you think of all that?
Well, first of all, Bukele really did go against the grain, what is now 2 years ago, by putting El Salvador on a Bitcoin standard. And he just continued to go from strength to strength. He's acting on his words. I know we are all still cautious, hoping that there's no hidden agenda, but so far so good.
Yeah, I think the bank's just inevitable. Like, I think you've got to look at it on different levels. I think there is a belief in kind of like Bitcoin. He knows the dollar isn't working for his country, so he does want to look to move across. But it's a means to a purpose, isn't it? Like you look at the Democrats in America, a means to a purpose. So yeah, we're going to talk about this in order to get voters. His means to a purpose is to better his country. I mean, that video is like a really bad mashup. Like, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really like that video one bit. I just found the guy really irritating. I had the cutaways, but I think it relayed some good information on a video which we touched, must be a good month ago, where he's looking at the long term. And I think this is really important for any country as we've got into the cycle of what can we immediately promise? Oh yeah, we're going to promise UBI. But what does that mean 3 years down the line? It means you're going to be fucking bankrupt. It means you're going to be over 100% inflation year on year. And it means that your money's going to be worth fuck all. And you're going to be government subsidized just like Argentina. Whereas he's looking at, well, what can we do, which is hard, which is move to hard money, try and get rid of the criminals, make them hard decisions to jail more with big cost to basically sort out the rest of the country, lower crime, and also bring industry to the country. So I think he is making all those hard and difficult decisions. And I think the one thing which I am a bit hung up on is he actually just a bit of a secret dictator? But then again, do we actually need that in the world? Does it provide stability? Because we saw, a few countries where dictators were removed and they've gone absolutely wild since, haven't they?
Yeah, well, he's had to kind of do that dictatorial path by obviously voting an extension of however long he can be a president.
It seemed a bit dodgy the amount of percent which he won by.
Yeah, you're right with regards to that. It's one of those things, though. It's that balance of, well, we wouldn't have had this if he wasn't in power, perhaps, or the next person that followed him might have veered them off a different path and then took them back to where they were. So perhaps he's done it all for the greater good, but he's had to, of course, do things that are typically seen as dictatorial.
If you think about like Syria, like it's turned into a hotbed of terrorism, but the guy before was seen as dictator. But when we actually looked at him, mate hacked his email, and it was just him sending notes to his wife about how much he loved her, and it was just like, pretty insane. You can't say that what he did was good, but he seemed to have the country under control. It's just kind of going, is it just something which maybe you should leave because you need the long-term power for people to actually do things?
Yeah, I think we need to be careful about the word dictator and Bukele, just because that's the FUD, that's the propaganda that's being pitched against him. They're trying to say he is, but on the face of it, he's a democratically elected leader, right? Just overwhelmingly so, twice, and you could argue that like a dictator, right, gets voted in no matter what, but the evidence speaks for itself. And literally 4 years ago, when he took over as president, it was the most dangerous country in the West.
It was a murder capital of the world, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And now it's the safest country in North America.
Is it North America?
What?
I want to say, but it's probably mid in murders now. It's certainly not the bottom.
Oh yeah, well, El Salvador's not in North America, but if you compared El Salvador to North America, it's the safest.
Oh, I get you.
Out of them. So that speaks for itself, right? And another thing is I think we're so like bogged down in our traditional politics where it's so corrupt. There's so many layers to get a decision made. Like our presidents and prime ministers have zero power, have zero influence. They can't get anything through. No material change ever happens. It's just tiny incremental things that may happen here or there, but by and large, you get taxed more, you earn less, and inflation keeps going up. And by and large, our public services continue to erode. That's all that's happened. If someone like Bukele was to get in UK or America and trying to do this, revolutionize like the pharmaceutical industry or the prison industry or the drug culture, whatever it might be, right? He wouldn't have a single iota of an impact because there would be so many, the Senate or the House of Lords, regulation, lawyers, courts, judges to get through. He wouldn't be able to get shit done. The fact is, he's actually living in a country, he's fucked off the IMF, he's fucked off the US kind of infiltration and their probes into that and their control of that country. And he's gone, I'm running it, and I'm actually going to be a prime minister. And we've got a load of criminals over here that whole areas of the country are just no-go zones for the police. They're just too dangerous. I've had enough. We're not going to have any more no-go zones. We're going to go in and actually going to stop this crime once and for all. And he actually fucking did it.
Yeah.
And now, like 4 years later, the country is much safer. He's on a Bitcoin standard, and he's just continuing to do more. And so from our side, we're like, oh, you have to be a dictator to have done that. It's like, no, any democratically elected leader that is genuinely a leader, not a puppet, that is the figurehead of a shadow government that is unelected, where they're calling the shots. This is what where voting actually matters, right? You actually vote for someone, and what they propose for change actually happens.
Correct. Yeah, you're right.
Tried to do this.
So what you're saying is vote for reform.
No, because in this country, you could, like I said, you could vote for Bukele in this country. It wouldn't matter. The system is set up to be so heavily protected from any infiltration that the same thing will happen no matter who we vote in. Same as America.
I mean, it's just everything seems to be done, and everything seems to be doing the hard things which no one wants to do. And I think the other one, which I'm reading tidbits about, is Milei in Argentina.
I was just about to bring him up as well. You're right.
He's brought inflation down to, is it single digits? And he just basically trimmed all the government spending. He just went, we're not spending that, we're not spending that. And he's going to make printing illegal. But I think he's had to allow some just to ease. But I think literally they got into what I talked about, is when you get into things like UBIs, you end up in a cycle of subsidies. So literally you depend upon the government, and the government has to borrow more, which means that you need a high UBI, and you end up in this cycle of being stuck and basically money being worthless. And we need more from the government. And he's trying to move them away from that. But it's, in a way, for him, it's going to be that short-term pain where people are going to starve, people are going to be cold, because they can't afford Dick, but they were like that anyway. So he just had to pull the plaster off. But Bukele, I think it's a bit easier for him because there wasn't the subsidies; it was just corrupt and murdering and gangs. Whereas Argentina is a bit more civilized because they're still hanging on to the 1940s.
And it's really encouraging. This Bitcoin bank looks encouraging because I didn't realize actually inside this article it says Max Kaiser, senior Bitcoin advisor to President Bukele. So looks like Max is now officially employed by the government, which if you had told Max he'd be a government employee 5 years ago, he'd have gone, no fucking chance. But he now works for the El Salvadoran government. But and this is another thing that looks, but I think it has potential, right? They don't completely say what it's going to do, but I think it largely is just going, buying a house or taking a loan and all that stuff. If you were to loan against your Bitcoin or use it as collateral or whatever it might be, the default banks are fiat banks, right? They want to see hard assets. They want to see how much do you earn, and essentially how much fiat do you have and how regularly does it come in. Whereas if we had a Bitcoin bank, you go, okay, this is much better. And yeah, I still believe in you should be your own bank. But I think if we get onto a Bitcoin standard and you work on up from that, then yeah, there is going to be potentially a use case here where
there's going to be some midpoint, but I've got no idea what it looks like to help people. So I think we are on something which isn't going to be able to spread across the masses. And I think there's going to be some halfway house, but some way where you can still take custody and not have the bank hold you hostage.
It won't ever start here in like the West. It has to start with those countries where the situation is dire, where it's bad, because it can get no worse. And El Salvador.
Well, that's what I mean. El Salvador, it's getting a lot better, and it's a situation where they've got the opportunity to innovate and look at things like this, where they go with the world's only Bitcoin bank, which is decentralized, and it's done by this and this. Like it could be some kind of solution which I've just never thought about. So it could encourage the innovation then of the people coming in. So like Max Kaiser will be getting all his Bitcoin chums to come in, some of the greatest minds to form these kind of banks.
Yeah,
because I've just realized actually, it says Kaiser emphasized the bank's potential to attract significant Bitcoin investments, allowing borrowers to collateralize their Bitcoin without counterparty risk. So that suggests you don't have to deposit your Bitcoin with someone to get a loan, which technically is exactly how banks work today in fiat land, right? If I want to go and get a 10 grand loan from a bank, they don't ask for me to give them a pound of gold or park my car in their car park just in case I don't pay. They just give me the money. And then if I don't pay, they will come and take assets. It's the same here, I guess. But your wealth will be denominated in Bitcoin, which in the fiat land is not valued. That any asset, any money, wealth that you have in Bitcoin in the existing fiat land is not seen as real money. They would not loan against that. You would have to have a fiat income or fiat assets to be able to get a loan.
Yeah.
Which I guess this one is going, no. We'll need to do a risk assessment on you. So if you get a 10 grand loan, you need to be able to prove that you can pay that back. But if that is holdings in Bitcoin or income via Bitcoin, that's good. That counts as income. And so that'll be a big step forward. Just allowing Bitcoiners to have mortgages. Literally, if you live on a Bitcoin standard, you can't have a mortgage. You can't.
Definitely not.
Won't be long.
Yeah. I tried to get a loan for a car the other day. They laughed in my face. They wouldn't even give, because just purely because I didn't want to sell some Bitcoin to buy the car. So I figured, sod it. I'll put it on the never, pay it over a 5-year term instead. there's not a bank out there that would touch me. They wouldn't even give me 5 grand. They went, sir, you don't have regular income. Da, 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 da. And she went, but you haven't even asked me how much I want. They're like, it's just said, sir, you do not qualify for a loan. I'm like, I'm a premier customer. I have your black card in my hand. So I've checked the system and you do not qualify for any loans.
You only have
What-
regular outgoings to OnlyFans.
This is
You didn't say, but sir, I've got a business idea. Giving HJs underneath golden arches. Every golden arches. Why didn't you say so?
Come on down, literally.
We need some more ingredients for the trifle, which is the real business idea.
Going back to Bukele, I think one thing she'll probably take away from this is he hasn't been in mainstream media since he was elected back into power, because they loved having features about him about how Bitcoin was going down, how they'd lost money, and then around the super prison when he'd been elected back into power, and it was, too much. But we haven't heard anything since the GDP's been going on, since the murder rate's been confirmed as going low. It hasn't been looked at as a success story at all, has it?
No, it was the first couple of years where he was just implementing the change, buying some Bitcoin, implementing the change. He was called a dictator. He's called reckless of the money. Da, da, da. And then, 2 years later, after that, all the results have now been proven. The safe country, hugely up on his Bitcoin, has continued to DCA like an absolute chad throughout the entire time, and crickets. They'll clearly wait for something to go wrong, or then they will go in the news. But we know that
every situation, like there's higher tourists, lower murders, better reserves, everything's looking rosy for them at the moment, and we're trying to attract more people to come and live there or invest.
And the beautiful thing is, like, the way he's doing it is actually sustainable. Like, this is how you rebuild a country.
This is how you run. This is how you run a country, but
yeah, exactly. It's sustainable. Like, you could do what he is doing for 100 years, and it would be fine. When you look at all the other countries, whenever they have a slight step up in a service or whatever, it's but how did you go about that? Oh, you printed an absolute shit ton of money. Right. Well, you're paying for that down the line. You have made the entire country poorer. So you really better hope that that positive you got here outweighs this huge negative over there. Bukele is doing none of that. He is just genuinely using the resources he has, not getting the country into huge amounts of debt, not inflating the monetary supply, via a stealth tax on his population. He's using the money that is collected and he's spending it and just allocating his existing resources to do actual productive stuff instead of just walking around regulating every industry known to man to the nth degree to try and build regulatory moats to protect the incumbents. When you get rid of the crap in government and they just focus on, cut crime and provide a health and education service and largely stay the fuck out of everything else. It's kind of what he's doing and ain't half working.
It's what Malay's doing, but we're all quite suspicious of Malay. Like, there's just something not quite right, isn't there?
Yeah,
I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I think
maybe it's a fact. Maybe it's a fact he looks like he should be in like a 70s band or something with Slade.
Yeah, I've got a feeling he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, that guy. But
but everything's starting to look positive, and it is looking at them kind of going, he's doing the hard things, which every country should do. But like I said, something just seems very off with him.
Should we pivot over to Australia?
We left soft war book.
No, we'll come back to that.
Cool.
So Australia, it's where is it? It's third on the agenda.
Yeah.
So Australia's largest stock exchange approves its first Bitcoin ETF. So it's ASX, whatever that is. Apparently, that's the largest stock exchange, ASX. Yeah, so issued by VanEck, who are obviously have the American ETF as well. So there's 11 ETFs in America, one of them powered by VanEck. So here they rolled it out to Australia. So as we expected, America have led the way. They kind of put the first ETF out there, and slowly but surely, each country is copying. Right? There's demand. People want to put their money, and they want to track Bitcoin. These people clearly aren't doing it.
It's probably nothing.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably nothing. I think the last time I checked, it was just under 900 million had gone into ETFs. So yeah, the flows are there.
It's just a bubble.
Yeah.
Pretty,
it might be more.
I'm pretty sure.
And it's also like we're still in the first. When did it go? January, so the first 6 months. So it hasn't really got going yet. Let's be honest.
No,
you should be looking.
Yeah,
you should be looking at a couple of years. And the UK, there's been rumours about it's not an ETF, it's an ETN, exchange traded note is how we want to package it up in the UK. But that hasn't been confirmation when it's going to go through yet. And I think Europe. Yeah. What's her name? The battle axe in charge of Europe, but not elected.
Pass.
But just a quick correction. There's 15.6 billion.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
A bit more than 900 million.
That's crazy.
15x on that. Literally, like 15 billion. And that's as of 10th of June, according to Google. So it's about a week out of date. And what have we been live? It was January, wasn't it? January, Feb, we went live. So in 6 months, 15 billion flows into Bitcoin via the ETFs. That is, like I said, we're just getting going. That's the drop in the ocean. These are the innovators, the first movers, the people taking risks. Once all these people wait and sit in there for a year or two and make nice gains, that's when the rest of people go, oh, the waters are safe. You've proven that out. Oh, great. I can make a 1 or 2% allocation of my fund in there as well. And 15 billion will look like, well, the drop of the ocean that it will be, where hundreds of billion, if not trillions, come flowing
in. It's not being allowed in Europe, isn't it? And what I was trying to get at before, like the leader, it's Ursula von der Leyen, the convicted criminal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The convicted criminal Ursula von der Leyen won't allow Bitcoin into Europe, so I don't know if it's going to happen soon. But then again, like I said earlier, everyone follows America. Yeah, so once the US do it, surely they're going to do it.
Yeah, because your arguments for why not, before it was it's a manipulated market, we want to protect investors. The largest pot of investors is in America. They all now have a whole wide variety of ETFs to pick from. So that argument just completely falls away. So you're only left with the FUD, and that kind of falls away because, or if any of that was true, why does the US have 11 ETFs?
Yeah,
I think it's a matter of time. I must admit, I think there's a number of people that are hypothesizing on Bitcoin Twitter at the moment that the volume of buys on the ETFs at the moment, I think someone added it up, and the amount of Bitcoin that has come out of the network in the last 6 months, the ETFs have brought more than that. So the entire outflow of the Bitcoin network has been completely absorbed by the ETFs alone.
All right.
So what that should translate into is a pump in price.
Yeah.
But the last 6 months, there hasn't been, because obviously the same buying pressure was there anyway, on the typical Bitcoin exchanges. But then suddenly we have the suppliers coming out at the new halved rate, or at least it has been the last couple of months, but before at a standard rate. That was being eaten by the existing kind of buyers. Now we have a new player, as in this ETF, a whole new market has come in, and is not only buying their allocation of Bitcoin, they've eaten up the entire supply over and above what the existing market was buying. So that should have led to a supply and demand shock, which results in price, the big green dildo candles that we've all been looking forward to. So there's some conspiracies or hypotheses at the moment to go, are all the ETFs buying the Bitcoin? Is what we suspected going to happening, where they're taking in tens of billions in a Bitcoin ETF. Are they buying the Bitcoin? Because if they are, because obviously only one of them shows proof of reserves. BlackRock is by far the biggest, which has 80% of the volume going through it. They do not show their proof of reserves. We just have to trust them that the 10 or 11 billion of Bitcoin they supposedly now hold, do they hold it?
Right.
Or are they holding paper Bitcoin? IOUs. We've got 10 billion in this account. Why is it all still dollars? Oh, well, it's Bitcoin. On their screens, it says they own an allocation of Bitcoin. But are they good for it? Have they actually been buying Bitcoin, or are they using this to control the price? Because how can the price go up if the majority of money that buying Bitcoin goes through their ETF? Can't, can it? If they're not buying it behind the scenes.
Do you think we'll ever see proof of that?
Unlikely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we ask any politician how many
I think
pounds exist, or dollars exist, they won't be able to tell you.
one company, one of the ETFs has proved, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, it's one of
maybe,
the smallest ones. It's like
but
probably
maybe
owns
it's
like
pushing that.
2 or 3%.
Maybe it's pushing the agenda. Saying buy Bitcoin, obviously from an exchange, self custody, but you're going to buy an ETF, buy it from this one because they actually do back it with Bitcoin and it's proven. Maybe it's something like pushing that across.
But the average person, they're not going to listen to someone like us. They're going to be on their computer. They're going to see the BlackRock ETF. And they're going to buy that. But yeah. But the way to unravel all this is fuck the ETFs. They don't really matter. If they're not buying Bitcoin, then let's embarrass them, and let's get a load of people buying Bitcoin on the exchanges, taking self custody. Let's pump the price of Bitcoin up to $1 to $8 million a coin, and then BlackRock are going to be absolutely fucked because they could be holding $10 billion worth of Bitcoin right at the moment that they have not backed by Bitcoins. They're just holding fiat. And if Bitcoin was to 100x to 8 million, let's say 5 million, they now owe, instead of 10 billion, they owe 1,000 billion. Yet but their reserves are going to be 10 billion. So when those people come to sell their ETF and cash in on some of their 100x BlackRock, clearly they've got the funds elsewhere in the business.
Yeah.
But that individual fund is going to be going from, oh yeah, that's a nice little earner. They've got 10 billion sat there making 2 or 3% fees every year. To suddenly, holy shit, the fund 100x, but we don't hold the underlying asset. It's just zoomed up without us. I'd love it if that's how this story plays out. If Bitcoin fixes BlackRock by bankrupting them via a corrupt ETF, that would be beautiful. They literally think their ETF is the Trojan horse coming into Bitcoin, and in reality, it was our Trojan horse going in right into the middle of the beast. And they think they're
That
going to
would
manipulate
actually
it,
be unbelievable.
and it just blows up inside their base. And they're like, oh no, we literally owe $1 trillion to all these customers. It was 5 million today. It's 6 million now. It's 7 million. What? We can never pay these customers back. We have to freeze trading. Because that's what they'd have to do, right? They'd have to
Yeah.
manipulate the price of the ETF because they can pause trading on the ETF at a click of a button, right? But the price of Bitcoin can't be stopped. It's just going to keep trending upwards. So all those people that have put their money into the ETF be like, well, hold on, how come I've only got 3x gains? According to the Bitcoin exchanges, it's gone at 100x. Now we pause trading. Why? Because we don't hold any Bitcoin, we can't afford to pay you back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay.
let's keep. Well, it's been approved. Was it Hong Kong? The other one.
Yeah, they were mentioned in that article as well. Yeah, Hong Kong
Yeah. Yeah.
dropped in there as well.
So it's happening slowly but surely.
Yeah, and the demand is there. So yeah, I just I threw it in. We mentioned it last week on the pod. So Soft War, and a Bitcoin book by Major Jason P. Lowry. And so yeah, we spoke about it, and literally on the pod last week, I just thought, you know what, I'll just buy it. So it's all right, right? It's literally written as a educational like piece of work, as in its dissertation. So the book is A4 in size. The pages are full from top to bottom with text. It's like
I was
300.
going to say you managed to get through it pretty quick as well.
No, I haven't read the majority of it. I've read about the
Okay.
first, say, 100 pages. And just to get a feel for it, and then I kind of got a bit bored. So I'll probably skip to the end and read his conclusion or something because it's literally. But what's good about it is because it's like a dissertation. He has an exec summary largely at the front, which kind of summarizes the whole book, right? And then
Right. Yeah.
he starts to break down where did I come to some of these conclusions. Here's some of the detail. But. And yeah, initially I thought it was kind of okay. It had some good kind of callbacks to previous inventions. He mentions things like Einstein, Tesla, and then he mentions Satoshi in the same kind of breath. And I thought it was a good analogy, as in there's so many inventors and geniuses of their generation that are not appreciated whilst they're alive. The things that they invent are largely seen as too scary to the existing system. So they get hounded out of town largely and just called a load of names. They'll look for some personal insults, some personal things in their lives to destroy them on. And they largely die thinking, I haven't achieved very much. And then it's in the generations that follow that they suddenly realize. And in reality, I think really what happens is that the powers that be learn how to harvest or harness this new innovation, kind of bake it in, learn how to make money out of it, and then it goes mass market, and everyone goes, "Wow, where did this amazing thing come from?" And people have the callback to, "Oh yeah, you know that dead guy from 50 years ago, it was him." And like, wow, what a legend! And then that legend just grows as time goes on, which is why we still know the names of Tesla, Einstein, and Faraday, and whoever else. But in their days, they weren't respected. And who knows, maybe the same is happening to Satoshi right now. And likelihood is he may already be dead. But even in the next 50 years, he likely will not get the respect he deserves from the masses because they are scared of change, and the existing system is also threatened by the change, and hence has an agenda to do personal attacks, flood attacks. But then once the world embraces it and everyone's using Bitcoin, we're on a Bitcoin standard, someone will probably ask at some point going, wow, who invented this? And it'd be like, you know, back in 2008, this guy called Satoshi Nakamoto, what a legend. And then as the generations go on, he becomes our generation's Einstein or Tesla. So I thought that was a good
Very
little
true.
thing.
I'd just like to point something out to all the listeners. Craig Wright isn't dead.
Sounds like
I haven't read this book, but I was having a read through Amazon, and I've also asked ChatGPT to summarize it for me. And ChatGPT was actually quite flattering, but the key takeaways from ChatGPT is transformation of power dynamics. The digital revolution is transforming traditional power dynamics, necessitating new approaches to national security. Bitcoin's strategic value. Bitcoin is not just a financial asset, but a strategic tool with significant implications for power projection. decentralized resilience. Embracing decentralization can enhance national resilience and security. Policy implications. Governments need to recognize and adapt to the strategic implications of digital assets to maintain and enhance their security posture. So that was kind of the summary of it. So what that means for the average listener is buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. And it's like fundamentally I agree with him on some points and also disagree at the same time, because I think he's right in the fact that Bitcoin will be essentially, he kind of phrases it like as a weapon of war, but in a non-violent way. And he does use some quite good analogies around animals, around the fact that, just showing your teeth is a way of threatening or showing your strength without actually fighting. Doing the fighting never works out for either. So he loves wolves in this. Wolves are constantly throughout it. So wolves obviously snarl at each other, and because they know if they engage in a fight, the chances are both of them will walk away mortally injured and will likely not be able to hunt, and then could well both die. They both don't make it. So it makes more sense for both male wolves to just snarl and growl at each other. And then you just largely side each other up, and someone then concedes without the fight needing to happen. And that's essentially what you can do with Bitcoin. It's the equivalent of a snarl, really. And you kind of go, look, our economy is backed by Bitcoin. What's your economy backed by? It's this. Right. So on this trade disagreement we've got, or whatever the disagreement might be, look, we clearly have the advantage here because we're on a Bitcoin standard. You're still on fiat. So therefore, maybe you concede. So it becomes a way of having war without needing to kill each other and actually fire bullets. But which is an interesting take. I personally don't think it's going to happen that way. He's kind of coming from a top down. I think it's going to come from a bottom up. So I think governments adopting Bitcoin and then suddenly America or UK are on a Bitcoin standard. Unfortunately, I can't see that happening. I think some of the small countries will adopt it, and then we just need to let the rest of these countries fail in some shape or form, and there's going to be...
That's an interesting point you say there. So you think the individuals will help Bitcoin get to where it needs to be over and above a country or a government per se?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's essentially what happens, because Bitcoin hyphenization and stuff like that, and going, oh, bottom up sounds unrealistic. But in reality, that is what happens during hyperinflation. Essentially, the population lose trust in the money and stop accepting it as payment. And that's when it balloons. If people keep accepting that, 10 Zimbabwe dollars is worth it for a day's work, then no matter how much they print and how much out of control it gets, provided the economy and the workers will trust and believe in the money, then inflation can be largely controlled and hidden. But the second people go, no, 10 Zimbabwe dollars isn't enough. I need 100 now. But then next week it's 1,000, and the week after it's 10,000. And eventually you go, I don't want that. I'll be paid in mobile credits instead. Or
I think it's impossible to hide inflation because it's not just about the individuals. Like, you go, oh, I need to be paid $100 now. It's also the suppliers. So people who you have to buy food from, you could have to buy bricks, you could have to buy metal or whatever for your house. You're having to buy, and all their prices have gone up because they know the money's been inflated.
So it depends where they're getting their goods and services from, isn't it? If they're getting their metal from outside your country, then that's when you realize inflation is a thing. Inside your local ecosystem, you can completely hide it because everyone's on the same money. But the second you go outside your country...
I don't think there's any economy which is self-reliant. Otherwise, they'd just be doing as they please, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
The only one which is like tribes in South America, who are hunting.
Yeah, I always remember actually. It's my science teacher in school. I think I was about 13 or something, and he went like the how amazing science is and how amazing like the human manufacturing process is, and he held up a pencil and went, "How many countries do you think it takes to make this pencil?" and I forget the exact number now, but it was like 7 or 8. He went, the lead comes from this country, the wood that lines it comes from another country, the paint on the outside of the pencil comes from another country. There's a bit of metal here at the end, that's another country. There's rubber in the end of the pencil, that's another country. So it's like, as a country like in Britain, for example, we could not make this pencil.
Correct.
Like we do not have the natural resources to make this pencil. And this is not the only example, right? And it's you just go, wow, like we really are a kind of a completely globalized society now, where we've got natural resources flying around, which is why you can't hide inflation.
I got cut off earlier on, but when I was on my rant of the US debt clock, and effectively just stating that every country is in debt equally. The US is spending more than it brings in. There was only China at this moment in time, whilst they obviously do have debt, they bring in their GDP is greater than their debt per year. But obviously, so they can continue to consume from the outside while still being in profit as well.
Yeah, sweet. Should we move on to the last story of the week?
A last story, indeed.
It's rare we have shitcoins on here, but it's nice if we can just do a nice little dunk, right? So yes, we've got Eric Voorhees here, right? So he is actually an OG Bitcoiner, but then in the last 5 or 6 years, pivoted into shitcoins, thinks they are the future, the whole DeFi and all that kind of bollocks. So 3 years ago, he had a bet with a guy on Twitter that his bag of shitcoins would far outperform Bitcoin. And so he's got a dozen or so of these things. It's freaking everything known to man, right? His little summary of it was, these are quality, transformative, innovative, open source, and part of a decentralizing future outside of the control of the state. Are they, Eric? Are they?
What the hell's Rune?
Oh, geez. Don't even start going through them. Like, I have no clue. I have no fucking clue. There's a load of freaking...
What's in there, which I've known straight away, is USDT. So he's pretty much got the equivalent of bonds in there. So how is a bond going to outperform Bitcoin when it's going to be 1-to-1, unless he's looking for Bitcoin to dip?
Yeah, well, it's literally, it's just he's got USDC as well. Yeah, which is literally a stable coin.
Yeah, so it's kind of, he's almost doing the standard investor things of having a all-weather portfolio by throwing in the bonds.
Yeah. So so basically they did not make more money than Bitcoin, according to their chart.
He's then come out and said that 95% of his bags are Bitcoin.
Yeah, so why do you run a shitcoin casino then, dickhead?
Yeah.
And why did you make this bet? Clearly, like, what a stupid bet. Like, why would you bet against your own portfolio? If he is 95% Bitcoin, then why would you make a bet that this bag of shitcoins would make more than Bitcoin? Like, because this is what you're telling your customers you're doing. It's what you're telling your followers you're doing. You lost this bet, but these shitcoins, when you look at them, the majority of them went down. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 went up. And admittedly, materially, quite a lot up, right? Especially I think there's Solana in there that's got a 5x. But he's got a load of stuff in here, 98% down, 95% down, 85% down. Essentially, a load of these shitcoins that he handpicked himself have largely gone to zero in a 3-year period. So that brings his overall portfolio down well below the gains that Bitcoin have made. So the overall tweet on this is the guy, an OG in this space. He runs a shitcoin casino. He has access to a load of data. He probably speaks to a load of founders of these shitcoins. he had open choice to pick whatever bag of shitcoins he wanted to beat Bitcoin over a 3-year period. He couldn't do it. If he can't do it, I can guarantee the majority of people out there can't do it either. Because it's possible, right? There's the odd shitcoin in his list.
Yeah.
If he'd have just picked that one and a couple of others, he would have outperformed Bitcoin because it's obviously they all go up or have their booms and busts at different times. If you can get in and out of a shitcoin at the right stages, you can outperform Bitcoin. But that's like saying you can go into a blackjack table and outperform Bitcoin. Just play hands that you win and avoid the times you lose and just bet on the right numbers on blackjack or on roulette. But chances are, if you play for long enough, you're going to lose. And that's exactly what happened here. And so it just shows that even the people that run businesses and are huge advocates for these shitcoins, because I'd have even said over a 3-year period, I would have gone, that's not enough time, because potentially Bitcoin might lose over that time period just because the last year of the time period could coincide with a couple of these coins just pumping and Bitcoin could take it up. But so I'd have said personally 5 to make it just, we definitely went over 5. Over 3, maybe it's touch and go, but we won even over 3. It's just, yeah, it's just embarrassing at this point. Anyone that holds shit coins for anything other than like, it's like buying a lottery ticket. You know, it's you're just hoping for a big win, but in your heart of hearts, you know this is just you're just losing money. But yeah, anyone else that thinks they fancy entering the shitcoin casino to try and build up your stack and essentially buy a bit more Bitcoin with it, it ain't probably gonna work. It's not probably not gonna work. Take what you got now, just stack the sats, sit back, relax.
I like the rhymes. Not really. And again, you know, none of us on here follow shitcoins or anything like that, but not really heard any new ones coming out, like the new shitcoin that everybody's kind of running to, which is a good thing.
Do you now have no Doge with hat?
No, I don't have no Doge with hat. No. Again, maybe I'm just out of the loop, but maybe that's the new thing that people are just sticking to the old shit coins, and those shit coins are eventually dying too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always, it was literally with hat. that was as far as the innovation went in the last cycle, really. They just rehashed a load of shit coins and put with hat on the end. So yeah, if you followed that trend with hat and probably got in for a couple of months and got out, you made some money. Congrats.
Yeah.
But it's always funny how the people I know have made money on shit coins.
Yeah, it's just good luck spotting that trend, right?
Yeah,
you have to be a proper.
It's always funny.
Yeah.
It's like
and half the time, I don't even believe it either. I don't even believe the gains. I just think there's so many rich crypto people out there now, because the majority of this money that was made in shitcoins is all centralized in probably 100 people. So sometimes they create the Doge with hat or Solana with hat, like whatever the thing is with hat, right? And then they just buy 10 million of it themselves. The price goes to the freaking moon. A load of people jump in, they dump it again. And it looks like, oh, look at all these huge gains people made. No, the majority of people got in right at the top just before that peak, and then they just rode it down. That entire spike upwards was completely manipulated by a couple of people buying their own supply and pumping the price. You can't rely on it even.
But everyone I know has made a nice profit off shitcoins. What are you trying to say about them?
I think I've said enough. So yeah. That's it for this week, isn't it? Nothing happened. Just that.
Nothing happened.
Dominating multiple governments: America, Australia, Hong Kong, El Salvador. And, what are we doing next week?
Not eating trifle.
Never eat trifle. If that's one lesson, just buy Bitcoin. Never eat trifle. If that's one lesson that we can give to viewers and listeners.
Yeah, I think we've got ideas for what our cover will be for this week.
Yeah, there's a slogan coming out there, isn't there? The 4 Bs. We don't eat trifle.
Well, 3 of them do.
Yeah. Right. Well,
The 4th B
I'll
is like,
bring.
no. What's this?
Yeah.
That pube?
Oh,
No trifle. No trifle. Okay, well, I'll bring us to a close on that note, which is this has been Pod 144, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show was a no show. Peace out.
eating trifle.